being out on a floor and just chatting with the customers and creating special moments for customers and knowing that you're part of their celebration. I just love every bit of it.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Longevity in the hospitality sector is the goal of most, but how do you master it? With all the bumps in the road, how do you continue to adapt and evolve your offering and thrive in an ever-changing market? Brooke Jensen is the co-owner of the Jensens Group, which includes Jensens Restaurant and Papa J's Cocktail Bar in the Sutherland Shire of Sydney. Brooke, how are you?
Very well, and thank you for having me.
It's great to get you on the show. You and your husband are kind of legends of the Shire when it comes to hospitality. How are things going there at the moment?
Yeah, look, it's pretty good here in the Shire. So, look, I completely agree with every news article and every report that is out there that hospitality is tough. And, I completely agree with the statistic that 1 in 12 restaurants or businesses will probably close within the next 6 months to 12 months. I agree with that. And but we are pretty fortunate here in the Shire. We've got a good regular trade. We've got some great locals who are still eating out. Look, don't get me wrong, things have dropped certainly. But we're still pretty fortunate in our location and where we are. So blessed in the businesses that we've got so far.
You've seen many bumps in the road over a couple of decades in the industry. Do you think sort of being seasoned that way and knowing sort of what might be expected has helped you in the current climate?
Oh, I definitely think it is. Don't get me wrong. I actually think that this is probably the hardest climate at the moment in comparison to the last 20 years. We seem to get through obviously the COVID times and the lockdowns and the takeaways and things in an easier stance than what we are now. You got to be tough. You've got to fight for everything at the moment. It's a bit of a game. We can't put our pricing up too high, but then everything on us, as in our food costs and everything, is going up just so much. So, the good old days of the hospitality industry where your profit margins were probably reasonably okay, they're getting smaller and smaller at the moment. So it's a bit of a hold on for the next 6 months and just try and get through, and hopefully our industry will come back again, I guess, next year.
We mentioned the two venues that you have at the moment at the top of the show, but you let go of a legendary venue there in Cronulla earlier this year, Somersault. Tell us about the decision to let go of that.
Yeah, so Somersault, we had ownership of Somersault for 19 years. So,
wow.
I know, and I really appreciate that you just did a wow, because I do believe anybody in this industry, if you can have a restaurant for 19 years, it's a bit of a hats off. It's a hard game. And, to be honest, it was my husband, Carl, who set up that restaurant in the Allura Surf Club down in Cronulla. And I joined forces with him in the first couple of years. But 19 years of some amazing memories at Somersault. And we kind of tossed and turned about, do we do a complete renovation of Somersault and maybe even rebrand or something and try and relaunch her after 19 years, or do we sell? And I guess it was a hard decision to make, but we decided to sell, and couldn't be happier to sell it to the Sydney Restaurant Group. I think they're amazing people, and obviously their waterfront venues are fantastic. So to sell to Bill and his family, that was nice as well. And I think one of the biggest achievements out of all of that is to sell a restaurant after 20 years. I think a lot of businesses run out their lease after that amount of time. You run your course and you've done your job and your lease sort of runs out. But for us to be able to go, okay, we can sell it after that amount of time, I was pretty proud of that.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you're so right that people usually just let go when the circumstances arise. Let's just talk about Somersault for a little bit. 2 decades is extraordinary. Is there any sort of fond memories or key moments that you can share with us for that restaurant?
Yeah. Look, After we announced that we were selling, it really hit me about how important it was into everybody's life in the Sutherland Shire or Cronulla. And, I had people come up and say, I had my first date there. Then I got engaged there. Then you did my wedding. So, it was such a moment where it was like, wow, it has been there for 20 years and you have gone through all of these moments with people in their lives. So, I mean, for us, I found that people were coming down to the restaurant to say goodbye and people were crying to us. And they felt like they were part of the whole journey and the whole moment of the restaurant. And it had an impact on so many people, the sale. Where that was such a nice feeling for us as well. I guess, you sometimes forget about all of those things and you're just, pushing the business forward and so forth. But it was a part of everyone's life and memories that they could always share and so forth. So that was really special for us, is for people to tell their stories and what it meant to them.
You've been a part of the hospitality sector there in the Shire for a long time now. Tell us about what you love about it now and how much you've seen it change over the last couple of decades.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'll talk from probably our area, the Sutherland Shire. If we were to go 20 years ago, there really wasn't that many restaurants in the Shire. You had your few sort of Italian restaurants, your Thai kind of restaurants, but there definitely we weren't bringing people from outside the Shire into our area. It was very local based and our regular customers and so forth. And I feel like in the last 5 years, we're definitely developing and having some great, city restaurants coming in and joining us amongst, us locals here running restaurants. And I think we're certainly getting a little bit more of a name within the industry. Our area is anyway. So, there's some great new local offerings and so forth. And I really hope it does become a bit of an area where we are sort of a bit of a foodie area where people are coming from eastern suburbs and so forth and coming down to our area to dine, because we do have some great little restaurants in our area, that's for sure.
I want to explore Jensens and Papa J's shortly, but take us back to when you were young. Where did you grow up and what sort of role did food play in your family?
Yeah, look, Shire, born and bred. So I they do say we don't leave. But look, I was born in the Sutherland Shire, and if I'm going to be really honest with you, and it probably a bit boring, but I had a very basic food sort of background or growing up. I didn't come from a foodie family, and when I was younger, there wasn't these amazing restaurants that were available. 40 years ago, it was your local pub or your Chinese restaurant and so forth. So I definitely can't contribute my childhood to where I to where I am now. If I really am honest, I would probably say I grew up on barbecues, or my mother's signature dish would probably have been her tuna mornay. So it's an Aussie childhood. She'll hate that I've actually put that out there. She'll probably kill me on that one. But that was my background. It was a stereotypical, Aussie childhood background, and I didn't probably I can't contribute my childhood to my career path into food and the industry.
Tell us about your career. You mentioned that you joined your husband Carl for Somersault, 2 decades ago. But what sort of lured you into the industry? How did it all start for you?
I was always in the industry from around about 16. In your cafes and small restaurants and so forth. And for me, when I was growing up, hospitality wasn't a career. It was never recognised as a career or where you were going to go in life. And I came from my background where my father was in finance, and you're expected to go to university. You're expected to do those things. And I kind of rebelled. I loved the industry. I worked my way up into, bars and cocktail bars and all of those sort of things. And then I guess a pivotal time in my life it would have been early 20s, so, possibly about 22. And I moved to London, and I thought, look, this is going to be a great step for me, and I'll travel the world and I'll do all these wonderful things. And I got off a plane And within 2 days, I got a job and I was working Elton John's garden party down in Windsor. And look, it was the most surreal moment. I'd come from like I'd come from the Sutherland Shire, and just worked in these local restaurants. I got on a plane, and yeah, as I said, I was transferred down to Windsor and serving the English elite of your Victoria and David Beckham's and Naomi Campbell's and all of these wonderful people. And it opened, and even Elton John. I mean, I was, God, can't forget him, can I? I guess it just it just opened my eyes that what, this is where this industry can take you, and you can do amazing things, and the doors it can open for you in hospitality. So I guess I stayed there for around about 4 years, and I worked within a small hospitality group in London, which ranged from cafes and cocktail bars and even a few great gastro pubs, which are, so amazing over there in London. And so that kind of exposed me to working in a hospitality group. And then, I came back to Australia after that and just continued my career.
What did you take from your time in London?
Yeah, it's what a fabulous place to live and work. It's definitely learned a lot and grew up in that time that I was over there as well. And it's the hospitality industry over there was absolutely amazing. And as I said, I worked within a hospitality group, which I guess kind of maybe inspired me to one day open up my own hospitality group and have several venues underneath it, and just being able to really bounce between their venues and move around within the group, I thought was absolutely fantastic. So maybe that was kind of a little bit of an inspiration for where I was going to go for the rest of my life.
Tell us about what life was like for you when you came back to Australia. Where did you work, and sort of how did you get your sort of feet back on the ground here?
Yeah, so obviously I came straight back to home, to the Sutherland Shire, and that's when I sort of, Somersault had only been open for around about 6 months. So I sort of applied for a job there, and look, it was fantastic. I mean, it was, and it still is, a great venue. It's right on the beach in Cronulla. Your floor-to-ceiling windows, you just look over the most amazing beach and so forth. So it was great to be home and be by the beach again. And that's when I sort of, that's where I met my husband and started managing at Somersault. And I guess from there, that's when we sort of grew together, and we started, I guess, a relationship and a business relationship as well.
What was it like for you beginning a business relationship, but also a personal relationship with Carl, and starting to build, one of the most loved restaurants of the region?
Yeah, I think what's really nice is obviously having, he's obviously based in the kitchen and I'm front of house. So I guess in a sense, it's still, I think it's the best combination. Going into this industry is having someone who can actually look after both areas of the business, and that's their expertise. But you also kind of are separated in the business as well. There's many a times that we work these long hours together, and I only see him a little bit of the day, because he's kind of working away in the kitchen, and I'm dealing with everything that's happening out the front. So it does seem to work, and as much as we try and stay in our own lanes, he often says I jump into the kitchen and jump into his lane a little bit too much, but that's just my personality, I think.
Take us to sort of Somersault was sort of building momentum, and you've created a group out of that, really. When did the other venues come along?
Yeah, so Jensens came along 8 years ago in probably a very unfamiliar area of Karilla, really. So it's a nice, we were looking for somewhere on the other side of the Shire to Cronulla and obviously to Somersault. And I guess we felt that the other side of the Shire, huge, great suburbs and obviously great location, but it was lacking sort of a big and a great restaurant. So, Karilla is an interesting spot in a sense. You don't go through Karilla to get anywhere else. It's kind of a one-way road in and a one-way road out. So that kind of did scare us a little bit. But we could see the potential in the areas and so forth around it. So I think we took a great leap in faith and a huge risk and thought, well, let's do it. The size of the venue was what was most appealing to us. I mean, it's a 200-seat restaurant, so we could see it's such a surprise package. We never expected it to be or have the potential of what it actually has. On the weekend, we are doing 200. We cap it at around about 260 people. I won't go above that just for, you can lose service and so forth. So we actually have to cap it at 260 people. And I mean, that's extraordinary for this small little suburb, which, I mean, some people would say, and we are in a shopping village, and I mean, some people would say, yeah, it's quite a bizarre area, but it's working, and it's a great spot that we're bringing out amazing food and some great service, and it's just, I don't even feel like it's hit its peak yet. I feel like we're just still finding our feet after 8 years, and we've got a long way to go.
Tell us about Papa J's as well, cocktail bar. How did that come about?
So, surprisingly enough, that came about in the middle of COVID. I know. You got to be, I think, mad to go, hey, let's open up a venue right bang in the middle of 2 lockdowns. But it kind of worked. So we could see that it was really lacking in Cronulla for a high-end cocktail bar. There was a lot of beach bars. There was a hotel, but not a really classy place to have a really great cocktail. So we found an amazing spot, great location, and just went, again, let's take a risk, and I think that's what everything in life, you've either got to take a risk and back yourself. And so we did. And look, I'm going to be honest, cocktails and bar, it's not our background, both Carl or I. So my bar manager from here, Josh Metcalf, absolutely amazing, and just his knowledge of cocktails is just, it's quite ridiculous. So we invested in him and we brought him over as a business partner and decided together we'll open a cocktail bar and do some bar snacks and so forth on the side. And it's going really well. I mean, the cocktails that they produce down there it's just amazing. And look, I think it competes with the city cocktail bars. It really does. And yeah, it's a great spot.
You mentioned that your background isn't in cocktail bars. Do you have to treat the venues differently from a business sense? Is it operationally different?
Yeah, look, definitely is. And I think there's no way that Carl and I would obviously just do a cocktail bar, a nightclub or any sort of bar on our own. I think you've really got to invest in to the right people. And we knew that Josh was there and I really can take a step back in that business. I pop in and, do the catch-up meetings and see how everything is going, but I don't actively work in it because, as I said, it's not my background, and we rely on Josh to run that. And yeah, I mean, look, investing in the right people, we can take a step back and not have to be in it so much.
You mentioned that Carl's in the kitchen and you're looking after the front of house. Tell us about your approach to running the front of house and getting the best out of your staff. What sort of things do you put in place to get the best out of your team?
Yeah, look, I'm pretty proud to say that my management and front of house staff have been with me ever since, let's say, 8 years ago, up to a couple of years. Our turnover of staff it's not very high, which I'm really, really proud of that. I just want all of my staff to be proud of the venue that they're working in, to be proud of the food that they're serving, and just to want to come to work every day. I want them to be happy to come to work, and then that will project onto our customers and into our service as well. So we've got a really good team environment here. And look, I think it's probably one of the biggest things that most of our customers do say, that, our service is always happy and friendly, as well as being knowledgeable, but they look like they enjoy being at work. We do a lot of, the usual, the training, the mentoring, but we also do a lot of team experiences together and field trips and, outings, and just to make them feel like they are part of a team. And ultimately, I hope that keeps them together as a team for as long as possible.
There's probably a few people that know Carl's food better than you do. How would you describe the sort of offering that you have at Jensens? And is there a dish or two that you love that sort of exemplifies the offering there at the restaurant?
Yeah, look, I would say, and it is true, our menu is huge. We've got a huge antipasto range, breads, then we go into entrees, mains. We've got aged beef. We've even got a pizza range. I think we are constantly changing our menu to either be on trend or modern. And also, the Shire is very much, we're not a destination restaurant, and we don't rely on tourism or tourists or anything. We rely on our locals, and we rely on return customers, and people having an experience where they'll return next week. And we do, a lot of our client base are people that come in here once a week, if not, once a fortnight. So our menu is constantly changing. It's a paper menu, so if it's not working or if we're sick of a dish, we just recreate new dishes. So I would say that once a week or every 2 weeks, it's a new menu that comes out with 1 or 2 new dishes, and we've always got weekly specials that we're bringing out just to make it relevant and fresh and obviously new for all of our regular customers.
You mentioned how important the local community is. What's important for repeat business? Like what things do you need to put in place to have those people coming back every week?
One of the biggest things, and I say this to all of my staff, is to be consistent. One bad meal or one bad service or so forth in here, and it will deter them for a length of time, and whether or not that's a month or 2 months or 6 months, but just to be consistent in everything that we do. And I reckon that's one of the hardest things in business, is to be consistent. It's always, we just want to get the best food out there as possible, to have that happy, friendly, knowledgeable service that is warm and inviting, that wants people to return. But being consistent in that week in, week out is probably one of the hardest things and the biggest key to success, really.
You mentioned that times at the moment are arguably the toughest that the hospitality industry has faced. Have you had to implement anything within your businesses to adapt to that this year so far?
You're definitely more looking at and controlling your costs. A couple of years ago, everything was fabulous and wonderful and you weren't so strict on things. But your labour costs, you've just got to be so in control of that and making sure that doesn't get out of control. And your menu pricing and everything as well. I guess as I said, we can't go too high in our prices because people are finding it tough. They can't afford, to go out midweek anymore. Your weekends are still staying relatively strong, consistent, but just a spur of the moment dinner midweek, that's where it's starting to drop a little bit. So you do have to make sure that things are affordable for your customers without going too over the top, but also keeping it so you can still make a profit or break even, really.
You mentioned a bit earlier that when you were young, a career in hospitality wasn't really considered a career, but you're living proof that it is. What sort of advice would you have for young people stepping into the hospitality sector and looking to make a career of it?
Yeah, just learn from every single job that you do, take on every sort of bit of advice and everything. And as I've said a few times before, if you want to take that jump, you've got to make that risk and you've got to take that risk and so forth, and you've got to back yourself in everything that you do. And also, it's not easy, you've got to be prepared to make sacrifices. You've got to be prepared to work every weekend, every calendar event, every Christmas day. I'll be honest, I think in the last 20 years, I don't think Carl and I have had a holiday longer than 7 days. It's I know that sounds terrible, doesn't it? But it's just what we do. Look, if we can get micro holidays here, there and so forth, but we haven't been over, to Europe. We haven't gone traveling for 3 or 4 weeks. We've remained pretty consistent in our businesses. And I think, that's something you've got to, I think after 20 years, we can treat ourselves to go longer than a week now. But yeah, I think so too. But I really do. I think sacrifice is one of the biggest things. Taking a risk, believe in yourself, but then knowing you really have to give up a fair bit to make your business work and be successful.
Well, you and Carl have delivered something pretty special for the Shire over the last 2 decades. What do you love about what you do?
I'm a people person. So if you put me and sat me down and had to make, me do computer work, it's probably one of my most hated things. Being out on a floor, I dread it when I have to do it. Being out on a floor and just chatting with the customers and creating special moments for customers and, knowing that you're part of their celebration. I just love every bit of it. And, I love the thrill and the rush of a big sort of crazy Friday, Saturday or Sunday. I love all of that. So the industry is in my blood, and it's just what I love to do.
Well, it's been an absolute honour, Brooke, to have you on Deep in the Weeds today, just to hear a part of your story. And it's great to hear that Somersault will continue as well after the sale. Please keep in touch, and we'll catch up again soon.
Sounds fabulous. Thank you so much for having me.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.